Spera. Good evening from Athens, Greece, and welcome to my makeshift studio here in the Greek capital. It is election night. Today we had snap parliamentary elections in Greece, and the elections are it's pretty clear with the result that we have. I'm just getting started here on this broadcast. For whoever is tuning in, thank you very much for joining me. If you could please let me know if the sound is okay and if the picture is fine. I think they should be all right. The slightest bit of concern about my connection, but I think it's going to be okay. I turned off the fan just to limit as much as I can the background noise, so I might be a bit sweaty during this broadcast. Please don't mind my appearance. Thank you. Getting a comment saying it's all good. Yeah, it's been a scorcher this week in Greece. They shut down the Acropolis to tourists for several hours. It's been that hot, like 35 to 40 during the afternoon. So might get a little sweaty here, but no problems. I'll get straight to the results. What I'm looking at, the most recent results I have seen. New Democracy, the main opposition party currently, the center-right party that is currently led by a Mitsotakis. This Mitsotakis is Kyriakos Mitsotakis. His New Democracy Party has received 39.6% of the vote, according to the latest figures I have seen, and they're currently projected to receive 158 seats in the 300-seat Greek parliament, which would give them a majority. Syriza, the current ruling party, is set to fall from power. Syriza, according to the latest results I have seen, has garnered 31.6% of the vote and are projected to grab 86 seats in the parliament. That is an 8% differential between New Democracy and Syriza, which is just about what the polls were projecting. It seems like the polls in this case were accurate, and New Democracy will not need to form a coalition government. If these results hold, they will have a majority. Syriza, led by current Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, will fall into the opposition as Kyriakos Mitsotakis is set to become Prime Minister, and the Mitsotakis family, if it hadn't already been so, is really set to become a Greek political dynasty. So going back to the early 1990s, Konstantinos Mitsotakis was the Prime Minister of Greece. Kyriakos is the son of Konstantinos. So now the latest Mitsotakis to become Prime Minister is Kyriakos, but there are more politicians in the family than just Konstantinos and Kyriakos. So the daughter of Konstantinos, who now has the name Dora Bakoyanni, she is the former foreign minister of Greece as well as the mayor of Athens, and she was the mayor of Athens back when Athens hosted the Olympics, and I think she has the distinction of being the first ever woman to be mayor of a host city of the Olympics. She might as well be she might be as well the first woman to be mayor of Athens. I'm not positive on that one, but another distinction these Mitsotakises have is that they have attended the Bilderberg conference, which I have been covering recently, last month actually, in late May and early June. I was in Montreux, Switzerland for the 2019 Bilderberg conference. Kyriakos Mitsotakis was not there. However, he was there in 2016 in Dresden, Germany, and in 2018 in Turin, Italy, both of which I attended on the outside, and I believe his father, Konstantinos, was at a Bilderberg conference back, I think, in the early 90s. And I believe Dora Bakoyani has attended Bilderberg, and possibly another of um sorry, too many Mitsotakises to keep track of. Possibly another sister of um, Kyriakos Mitsotakis may have attended Bilderberg. I'm not positive of that, but it's now very much clear that the Mitsotakis family is a Greek political dynasty, and I guess you could say they're a Bilderberg dynasty as well. I will be delving quite a bit into Bilderberg on this broadcast, given there's a lot of news with regard to Bilderberg, or rather, some attendees or past participants of the Bilderberg conference this week, either now ascending to high office or being nominated to do so. I'd already previewed a few weeks back that I had my eyes on this election. It was projected that there would be a change in government here, which indeed is occurring, that New Democracy would rise to power and defeat Syriza, and that certainly appears to be the case, and that because of that, Kyriakos Mitsotakis would become the next prime minister of Greece, which it appears indeed will be the case. And that was particularly interesting to me, given that he has attended the Bilderberg conference twice, as far as I am aware. And the Bilderberg group has a bit of a reputation as being a body of kingmakers. Now, can we say with any certainty that these politicians continue rising up the ranks and yeah, live is the comment. Yeah, I'm live. I'm grateful to whoever tuned in. I see the audience is very small. It's kind of hard to plan these things out. It's election night here. I don't know when exactly the results are going to come in and when I can get online and go live. But here I am. So thank you very much for joining me. We're already talking about Bilderberg, which might be your favorite subject. I'm not sure on that. So yeah, no, thank you for joining. And please feel free, whatever questions and comments you've got, leave them. I'll address them as we go along. I'm going to try to limit this to 30 minutes tonight. It's a busy night for me. I got a lot of work. I'm not going to get a lot of sleep. But anyway, back to Mitsotakis and Bilderberg. So the Bilderberg group has this reputation of being a body of kingmakers. Do we know that people ascend to high office, that they become prime minister, become chancellor, become president, or that their attendance at Bilderberg has anything to do with that? So I can't say that with any certainty, but wow, I mean, the cases just keep growing and growing and growing. So on top of some of the past cases that are kind of famous, like Angela Merkel going to Bilderberg before becoming chancellor, Tony Blair shortly before becoming prime minister, etc. Well, this week we have Mitsotakis apparently becoming, or slated to become, the next prime minister of Greece. As I've said, he's attended Bilderberg twice. And on top of that, speaking of Europe and the European Union, this week the European Council met in the aftermath of the European elections that were held in late May, which, by the way, the trouncing of Syriza by New Democracy in the European elections back in May is what led to the snap vote today here in Greece. So back to the EU, the European leaders, EU leaders, in particular, is Mitsotakis a globalist or populist? Can you hold that note for 1 second? I will get back to that question. If I don't, please remind me. All right. So the EU leaders and the leaders of EU countries met this week. They had their meetings, and they kind of, along, as is kind of the case, you might expect, even though it was their stated policy somewhat that they were going to try to promote the Spitzenkandidaten, the candidates of the various parliamentary groups, to try to promote them this year. Well, that didn't really happen. Hey man to whoever's saying hey man to me. So what happened is the EU leaders met this week and they came up with their selections for the nominations for the various high-ranking posts. They being most importantly European Commission President, likewise European Council President, and head of the ECB, new PM in Greece, Shipra? What is Shipra? Head of the ECB, the European Central Bank, which Greeks are all too familiar with because of the debt crisis, as well as basically the foreign minister of the EU. What is ND's stance on immigration and refugee flood? So who will be the new EU president? Okay, the ND stance on immigration and refugee flood, that ties into the last question about Mitsotakis being a globalist or a populist. Please remind me if I don't get back to it. I will get back to it though shortly. Okay, so the EU leaders met and they basically rejected the Spitzenkandidaten, the candidates that were put forth by the major parliamentary groups or European parties. Yes, von der Leyen, that's exactly what I'm getting to right now. So the EU leaders met and surprise, surprise, they nominated current German Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen to be the next president of the European Commission. And that is the most powerful job in the EU, arguably the most powerful position in Europe. New Prime Minister of Greece, well, that's expected to be Kyriakos Mitsotakis, who, like Ursula von der Leyen, is a multi-time Bilderberg attendee. In fact, von der Leyen was there. I am German. She's a horrible lady like Hillary Clinton. Okay, well, actually, I'm going to try to arrange an interview with someone, a fellow journalist who ran into Ms. von der Leyen at the airport outside of Bilderberg this year. And I think he can provide a lot of insights into Ms. von der Leyen and her well, maybe at that point it's not going to be a candidacy. Maybe by then she will be formally European Commission President, but it's not finalized. She needs to be. Is Tilman Nechtel you going to interview? No, I know Tilman, but no, he's someone else. It was Max Bachmann who interviewed or confronted von der Leyen at the Geneva airport after Bilderberg this year. Germany needs to rebuild the wall. Okay, so the European leaders met, and who did they nominate? Surprise, surprise, they nominated von der Leyen, whose name had not been floated whatsoever. As well, they nominated Charles Michel, the former Belgian Prime Minister. They nominated him to be the next president of the European Council, which is basically the kind of the counter body to the European Commission, arguably the second most powerful job in the EU. Michel, like von der Leyen, is a multi-time Bilderberg attendee. And they also nominated a very powerful woman, Christine Lagarde, the current head of the International Monetary Fund, which again, Greeks are all too familiar with. They nominated Lagarde to be the head of the ECB. I don't believe the ECB position still needs to be confirmed by the European Parliament, but the Commission President and the Council President do, and the European Parliament is a bit upset about this process. They feel like they've had somewhat of their power stripped. Now, critics of the EU are going to say, well, they don't really have any power to begin with, and that's a debate we can have another day. Now, what's the common theme here? Von der Leyen, Lagarde, and Michel all are multi-time Bilderberg participants, ECB, European Central Bank. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, if I'm trying to limit the use of acronyms or at least explain them. ECB indeed means European Central Bank. So yeah, we got some alphabet soup, especially here in Greece. In recent years, during their bailout era, they were dealing with the European Union, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, and many people here were very upset with those institutions and the terms that they were imposing on Greece, austerity terms like hiking taxes and cutting social programs, etc. And opposition to that austerity is what brought Syriza to power and what brought Alexis Tsipras, the current prime minister, to power. But as I was explaining in my report earlier today, Tsipras made a 180-degree turn, U-turn, whatever you want to call it. He entered negotiations in his first year as prime minister and completely caved. What is the point of her being at the Bilderberg meetings? Do you think it leads to a doctrine she has to follow? Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I I can't tell you what exactly is going on the inside. Now I'm working on that. I'm trying to interview attendees at these meetings. I may be having some success. I may not be. I'm not ready to divulge that yet. And I can't promise you that I'm ever really going to get to the bottom of what exactly is going on. She's endowed by her creators. But regarding von der Leyen, she's not a nobody. She's held multiple ministerial roles. What is your theory? Hold on a second on that. I believe von der Leyen's the only person who's been a minister in every term Merkel has served as chancellor. She's bounced from one ministry to the other. She's currently the defense minister. And also she's got these so-called European credentials. Her father was an EU bureaucrat. She might have even grown up in Brussels. I'm not positive on that. She speaks 3 languages. She speaks German, French, and English. So she's one of these European types. And these European types, these people who are really pro-EU and are rising up the ranks in their various countries' governments, they clearly have appeal to Bilderberg. Von der Leyen was the first female defense minister, but important in a corruption lawsuit. She now escapes with her new position. Yeah, it's interesting that almost all of these candidates for these head E roles are tainted in some regard. Like even Lagarde, who I guess has probably the strongest credentials of any potential candidate to become head of the ECB. She had a case in France back when she was French finance minister. They got her on misuse of public funds. So a lot of these candidates are tainted in some regard, even if they're the front runner or even a shoo-in to become the head of, say, the European Central Bank. And a lot of critics of the European Union say these are washed up politicians, like that they're washed up in their own countries before they rise up to become commission president or some role in the commission or a high-level bureaucrat in Brussels. But I don't want to stray too far away from Greece. So let's get back to Greece. It obviously relates to Bilderberg. We're talking Mitsotakis. The Mitsotakis family is a Greek political dynasty and a Bilderberg dynasty. So I'm trying to recall the questions. I believe we had a question on is the EU position you are really in the spotlight of attention while keeping power? But sorry for the off topic. Hold on, hit me with that in a bit. I'm getting back to Mitsotakis. The first question on Mitsotakis, before I get to the question about his party, the first question on Mitsotakis was, is Mitsotakis a globalist or a populist? Now this is a very interesting question, and I would say a bit of both. So Mitsotakis has, like von der Leyen, he's got really clear appeal to these EU types, to these Bilderberg types. He was really being promoted by Western media, even though Tsipras did a complete U-turn and really just kind of became a statesman and a guy who gets along and plays ball with the EU. Despite all that, the Western media was really promoting Mitsotakis, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, saying in headlines, this is the next prime minister of Greece. And you can see why. The guy, I believe, is Harvard educated. He's he comes from this political dynasty. His 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 economic views are definitely not they're definitely not socialist. Fun fact: von der Leyen, when slavery in the United States was abolished, her ancestor owned around 200 slaves. I had not heard that before. Um, yeah, so Mitsotakis is promoting policies that are very much in line with the EU types, with the Bilderberg types. He's promising to cut taxes, which I don't know. I mean, the EU basically forced Greece to maintain high taxes, but now I would say the EU wants lower taxes. I would say his Mitsotakis's economic program and agenda. I would say his family background, many of his personal credentials, they lean globalist. However, and this ties into the question about his party and immigration. In a sense, he's got pretty strong nationalist credentials as well. I guess the question was populist, and to some extent populist as well. So one of the key issues that helped swing the political momentum away from Tsipras and Syriza toward Mitsotakis and New Democracy was the Greece-Macedonia name dispute and the deal that was struck last year to end that dispute. This is an issue I've covered at length because I've spent so much time in the Balkans in recent years. Last year, Tsipras is. Can we expect a Grexit in Greece? I don't see that coming. I mean, maybe years down the road. But now Greece is on much better terms with the EU. The EU's on much better terms with Greece. The next prime minister of Greece is definitely not anti-EU. However, he and his party are pretty strict. They toe a pretty strict line on immigration, which I think that addresses one of the questions that I was getting at. But back to the Macedonian name dispute. So Tsipras and his government struck a deal with Skopje, the capital of Macedonia, now North Macedonia, to rename the country North Macedonia. No way Greece is profiting from the EU, unlike UK, France, or Germany contribute. So the Tsipras government last year struck a deal with the government in Macedonia, now North Macedonia, to rename the country. And in exchange for giving up Greece's objection to them using the name Macedonia, now Macedonia is allowed to enter NATO and in the future theoretically join the EU. And the current outgoing Greek government and the current government in North Macedonia, they decided to be friends. Well, that was very welcome news to a lot of people internationally, but it was not very welcome news to people in Greece, particularly in the north, in the Macedonia region of Greece. They were really, really angry about it. And Mitsotakis and New Democracy were railing against that deal. And that's one of the things that really helped them score political points. And it was one of the issues that helped swing the momentum in their favor over the past year in Greece. And they were playing to nationalist sentiments in that regard. They were not at all playing to globalist sentiments. I mean, the globalists and the EU, etc., they were all very supportive of the Macedonian name deal. The Greek nationalists were not, and correct, you really know what you're talking about. Respect. Thank you. And thank you to the commenter. And so, yeah, in that regard, Mitsotakis was very, very much playing on populist sentiments. Last year, there were huge protests in Greece, both in Thessaloniki and in Athens, protests against the name deal. And this was an issue where Mitsotakis was able to ride the populist wave, and he scored a lot of political points from opposing the Greece-Macedonia name deal. Now, also, immigration is worth noting. Syriza has been a lot more, Syriza's been very lenient toward migrants and immigration, I would say. So it was back in the fall of 2015 when a million migrants swept across Greece and the Balkans toward Germany for the most part and elsewhere in Europe. And the Syriza government was quite tolerant of the migrants passing through. Now, the New Democracy Party, the Mitsotakis' party, which just won, they're center-right, but they appeal to an array of conservatives, and that it's kind of been broadening. Their tent has been broadening. They've been getting some people from the far right to vote for them now. And there are a lot of people in the party, a lot of people supporting Mitsotakis who are very anti-immigration. So the answer to the question, both of these questions, it's a bit of a mixed bag with Mitsotakis. He comes from this political dynasty that the EU and the Bilderberg types are very cozy with, comfortable with. His policies are nothing that's going to really shake things up in a way that globalist types are going to be concerned about. He's calling for tax cuts, but now Greece is at least formally out of the bailout era. What is your take on GD? You think tougher stance on ND made GD voters? Okay, GD's Golden Dawn, and Golden Dawn's the neo-Nazi party. Here we go again. I said Nazi again. The latest video in which I said Nazi has not gotten removed, so I guess we're clean. If you aren't already aware, I've said I'm not going to self-censor. If Nazi comes up, I'm saying the word. That aside, Golden Dawn, I think the latest figures I've seen, they got 3-point-something% of the vote. They're out of the parliament. I'm not. There's several smaller parties. I'm not positive if New Democracy is getting Golden Dawn voters, because Golden Dawn is really, really radical and New Democracy is not. But possibly some Golden Dawn voters have voted for New Democracy as a protest against Syriza and just as a means to make sure that Greece takes a tougher stance on immigration. But that's just speculation. I don't know. Golden Dawn's very, very radical. I doubt a lot of GD voters are actually neo-Nazis, as you said, mainly protest. I can't tell you with any certainty. I want to see what are some of the questions I missed? Grexit. I think I addressed that. No, I would not expect Grexit. I would say, though, that there continues to be a whole lot of discontent in Greece, discontent primarily from the economic situation, just because the 3 bailout packages and the bailout era, they're finally over. Just because it doesn't mean that all is well in Greece. A lot of people are still struggling economically, struggling financially, and to me that has a lot to do with why Syriza is getting ousted. A lot of discontent turning into protest votes. But I don't think that discontent is strong enough to push Greece toward a Grexit right now. If a few years back it looked like they were on the precipice of an exit from the Eurozone, and then that didn't happen. And back then there was a government that was seemingly anti-Euro and anti-EU, and the exit from the Euro never happened, and then the government swung in a direction in which they were very much pro-EU, and now they're getting replaced by the opposition, which is also pro-EU, so I don't see it. Now, years down the line, who knows? Years down the line, the EU could break up entirely. Am I missing anyone's questions? Correct. I said I wanted to cap this at 30 minutes. I see some people are starting to join. I've been to Greece lately. What I noticed, a very open-minded attitude towards far-left ideas you wouldn't normally find it. Yeah, that I agree with that sentiment. There is the commenter is okay. I am back. I don't know if anyone's still here, but my phone literally overheated. So now I've got the fan on, and I'm gonna try to rearrange things. If you're still watching, please leave a comment. I was getting right to the point where I was gonna wrap it up anyway, but I was in the middle of answering a question. I mean, there was a question about uh, left. I can see and hear you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Uh, Hopefully, I can keep this phone from not overheating again. Yeah, so I was getting a question about uh, left socialist ideology, or I don't remember exactly. Leftist economics, something like that, really having appeal to people in Greece, and yeah, and very much does. Lots and lots of people here. Uh, those ideologies really have an appeal to. In fact, it was interesting because I was recently watching some clip of an interview of Dora Boyani. Thank you. I'm glad you're back. Uh, Dora Boyani, the sister of the new Greek, or the incoming Greek prime minister, former foreign minister. And Miss Boyani was commenting on the appeal of Syriza in Greece, and she was talking about the difference between Syriza and the so-called socialist or social democratic parties elsewhere in Europe. And she was saying how within Syriza, the actual socialism really has an appeal, whereas in Western Europe and elsewhere in Europe, these socialist parties don't really tend to believe in full-on socialism. Hit me with a couple questions and comments, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for whoever has stuck with me through these technical difficulties. I guess it's only fitting that my phone overheats. This is a nighttime broadcast. What if I was streaming during the day? Do I have any more questions or comments? I guess I'll speak very briefly about what's coming up for me, as I thank you as well. Thank you for joining me and for following along. I guess I'm making somewhat of a habit of previewing what's ahead for me at the end of these streams. I would like you to leave a comment if you would like for me to. You're welcome. A comment saying thanks for answering the questions. I would like you to leave a comment saying if you'd like for me to be doing these Sunday streams on a weekly basis. Comment saying you really have expertise. Thank you. I'd rather not play the role of the expert. As I was saying back in Istanbul, I'd rather play the role of the host and the moderator and the interviewer as opposed to the expert, but so be it. But yeah, if you want me to be doing these Sunday streams on a weekly basis, or maybe on another day, it's been Sunday lately, then yeah, please let me know, regardless of whether there's an election or not. I'm in the weeks ahead, I'm going to have to take a bit of a step back. I'll actually be in Ukraine for some time now. The nomadic journalism's a bit hectic this year, and I've really been pushing it over the past month and a half. And I'm going to need to regroup a little bit and try to get things in order financially. Sure, we'd like it. I will recommend your channel on a political Discord. Thank you very much for that. But yeah, regardless of whether I'm traveling or not, although there is an election coming up in Ukraine, and I have been covering Ukrainian politics this year, so I'll have more to comment on that. But regardless of that, I could be doing these streams on a weekly basis, but I do need to chill out a little bit with the travel for the coming weeks and try to regroup a bit and get my financial house in order before I hit the road again. Ukraine, very interesting. Is that conflict still going on there? Yes, there still is conflict there. If you're ever around Austria, I can recommend Actually, those are my next two destinations, Ukraine and Austria. So I will be in Ukraine for more than a month, a little more than a month, and then I'm going to be in Vienna in mid-August. Pretty much on a yearly basis, I go to Vienna in mid-August for a conference. So yeah, coincidentally, those are my next two destinations. Ukraine. The question about Ukraine, is there still conflict? Yeah, in the east, there still is fighting. It's not resolved by any means. There's a new president in Ukraine, but the war in the east continues on. Perchance at some point I can sort of make my way out there and do some reporting on it. Yes, perfect. Looking forward to updates and next Sunday. I'll try to come to you next Sunday. I can't guarantee it, but I'll post on the community tab on this channel about upcoming live streams, and if I continue to gauge that there's interest, then I'll try to continue to do these streams. So perfect. Martin Sellner is from Vienna and ready to talk to anyone. He's fluent in. If you could set up an interview for me with Martin Sellner, please. That would be much appreciated. Yeah, I'll be in Vienna in the middle of August, somewhere around the 15th through 19th, 20th, something like that. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to wrap things up from Greece. It's been quite the week for Bilderberg, as I addressed in this stream, and it's been an interesting Greek election, albeit it's been very calm here, not like 4 years ago. No crazy protests and demonstrations, very calm outside, so it's a good opportunity for me to be coming to you inside, even though the phone is still overheating here. So, Efaristo, thank you very much for joining me on this stream, and I guess I'll be seeing you and coming to you next from Ukraine. And if you can arrange that Martin Sellner interview, thank you very much. You can email me or hit me up however you can. And goodbye to all. Thanks again for tuning in, and that's a wrap.